Well, both were mentioning the impact that's having on the broader market, but in particular, we saw oil rise overnight, gold fell. I did ask Henry and Andrew to come up with a gold stock. The reason being is that we've had a number of production updates over the past couple of days. Plus, and I was just looking at Morningstar, it's trimmed its fair value estimate for Aussie gold miners, saying shares are trading up to 180% above fair value considering the price of gold. Evolution Mining, it's cut by 4% to $4.50. Northern Star and Perseus by 5% and 6% respectively. Henry, you actually came up with Vault Minerals. Now, of course, that is they're in the middle of a takeover bid. You've got both Genesis and Regis trying to take out this one. What do you? How's this likely to play out, do you think?
Well, I guess, it's also depends on the gold price at the moment, and that is under pressure because of the oil price going up, which seems kind of weird, seeing it was only a couple of days ago there was reports in the newspapers that we were going to have an oil supply glut. Yet now we're back on the whole oil is going to be constrained again. Vault Minerals obviously is a target at the moment of two players, Genesis and Regis, and Genesis has upped their offer. If you do the math, or the maths as we say, Genesis is offering 0.7629 shares of itself and 47.5 cents in cash for every Volt share, and I've just whipped out my solar power calculator and worked out that means that Volt on that basis is worth about 471 in terms of cents, and here we are at 482. So clearly the market is either relying that Regis are going to come back, or they think that maybe Genesis will maybe sweeten the offer. I don't think they will, because it's a pretty generous offer. So Regis at the moment has a period of time to match that offer, and that expires at 12 o'clock on Monday, not Friday as was initially anticipated. So next Monday at 12 o'clock AWST, that matching right expires. So it's an interesting conundrum, I guess, for shareholders. They should hold on, and certainly, Volt has come under pressure, as has Genesis, as has Regis, because of that. But the game is afoot. It is up to the ball is very much in Regis's court, but it does show the attraction, I guess, of Volt, and it does show that again, some of these gold stocks are undervalued. And when you look at that Morningstar research, that's fine. But if they're saying that some of these gold stocks are 180% overvalued, and they just knock the target price by 4 or 5%, that doesn't seem they should be knocking them by far more. But it is very much a function of the bullion price, and we've seen the volatility. You buy gold miners for leverage to the bullion price, and that leverage works both ways. But at the moment, if you're looking for some sort of sea of calm in a world of volatility, then Volt probably is one of the gold stocks you should be looking at because of that competing bid situation.
Yeah, look, I also question the maths there as far as Morningstar is concerned. I might double check that. It doesn't seem to make sense, does it? But Andrew, look, I know you're not into the gold miners specifically, but what are you seeing there? Given how far they have fallen, how much money they're making at the moment, are you sort of tempted?
Yeah, I am in my own self-managed super fund. I recently bought some PM gold. So it's not a miner, just to be clear, but I think that given that correction in the gold price from where to get to around $5,500 an ounce, sort of back over $4,000 an ounce, it's certainly starting to look attractive. Well, certainly for my wife and I, we think it looks attractive from that point of view. And Henry and I spoke last time relating to how can you get leverage, to the gold price, and obviously one way of doing it is to buy a gold miner, because they've got a couple of levers they can be pulling relating to production, how much they can pull out, equally so costs, and then that's where you really sort of get that leverage on the upside if things are working, or on the downside if things aren't so much working so well. I look at Volt just on a financial basis, and it's trading on a PE of seven, Market average is 17 times, and it is got forecast earnings per share growth of 90% next year. So even just on a valuation basis, you'd have to say it looks reasonably compelling. And then, one of the mantras I'm always looking at is relating to quality targets if there is a competing bid. So to Henry's point, you've got two quality suitors. You've got Genesis and you've also got Regis, and they're both interested in Volt. As an arbitrage, is that the right way of putting it? Certainly, to potentially make some money, you would look at actually buying the acquiree, Volt, on the premise that Regis and Genesis actually get into some sort of stoush and potentially start, either start overpaying. Noting, though, of course, that they're not actually paying with cash. They're paying with their scrip. So that's probably one downside. But high level, if you're holding Volt, I would continue to hold it. And if the gold price was to weaken again, despite everything that's going on, and you could get Volt at a cheaper price, I'd nearly consider buying it, because I think, as I said, from a valuation point of view, it makes sense. Plus, you've got quality suitors looking at it as well. And if this doesn't come to anything, it doesn't mean that something else won't occur in that M&A space. There's a lot of M&A potentially going to occur in that gold space. So, yeah, I think it's a buy.
All right. Actually, Henry, I should have clarified then. Of those three involved in this, do you own any of them at the moment?
No, I did own Volt. Unfortunately, I sold it a couple of months before the bid, as it hadn't really been doing much. But yeah, they're all a bit too big for my small cap portfolio, I'm afraid. But Volt did fit in just about. But yeah, no, Genesis has been in there before as well. And certainly it's one I like. I'm a big fan of Rolle Finlayson in that space. So, it's quality. They've got quality suitors, and it's a quality company, Volt. But it is very much dependent on the bullion price.
Yep. Okay. All right. That is the view on, well, specifically Volt, but more what we're seeing among the gold miners at the moment.